Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Call 0345 6060 973.
10 minutes before 8 now, as the people both sides of the channel come to terms with that tragedy. How is it to be moved on? Let's turn to Conservative MP and Minister for Safe and Legal Migration, Kevin Foster, who joins me now. There seems to be a war of words, Minister. We have the Mayor of Calais and President Macron suggesting UK should do more. We hear the Prime Minister urging France to do more. Who's right in your view? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Well, first of all, our hearts go out to those involved and their loved ones. It was an absolute tragedy yesterday, and to think of how they'd have, when their boat capsized, how they must have felt is just it really, I think, strikes to all of us. But I think what we believe is that we don't need to use this as either a French or as a British problem, but as one we need to work together on to come up with solutions. And yes, the French have worked to stop crossings this year. They've stopped 20,000, but we're keen to support them to do more, including providing not just financial resources, but like, for example, yesterday we provided a helicopter to assist with search and rescue. We're keen to provide what we can to support the enforcement operations on the beach, but also to come to agreements that ultimately can smash the business model of those who viewed those who died yesterday as nothing more than a profit-making opportunity.
We've been hearing about this for many months. Indeed, it was in March that the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, talked about publishing a command paper, talked more about a points system, a one-stop shop, a judicial reset. What's actually been achieved then in those 8 months?
Well, we have the Nationality and Borders Bill going through Parliament to deliver many of the points you've just made there and that we talked about. We are very keen to get that bill through as soon as we can. It would certainly be easier to do so.
What's taking time?
If the opposition... Well, it is a major bill, and I think it's safe to say opposition parties have certainly not been seeking to support that bill. But we're keen to...
You've got an 80-seat majority.
Absolutely, and we will use the majority to deliver that bill through.
But how many more people must drown before action is taken?
Well, we've already taken action. Later today, the Home Secretary will be talking to her French opposite number.
Well, they've been, respectfully, sir, they have been talking for months and nothing has been done. So, as I said earlier, there's enough of this blah, blah, blah. What action is going to be achieved before more people perish? Please don't say there'll be talks. Please, we've all had enough of talks. Action now.
First, Nick, I wouldn't say 400 arrests, 65 convictions, and breaking up 17 organised criminal gangs involved in small boats is doing nothing. That's what's happened over the last few months, working together with our colleagues in France. What we can do. Look, we work very closely with the French on, for example, the juxtaposed controls to secure the rail and ferry links between our two countries. They work well. The police of frontière and the border force literally working each other's territory to secure those key links. And what we now need to do is see how we can work together more to deal with those who then are who look to enter the UK via irregular means, in particular small boats. And we're prepared to put resources on the ground, working to support with French law enforcement to prevent further
What do you mean by that?
crossings.
You mean military? Do you mean by that?
Well, what we mean is, as we touched on, anyone who's, for example, caught the Eurostar will have seen Border Force and the Police aux Frontières working together to check passengers, to jointly work together.
Can I put it to you that is actually a success story? That the way United Kingdom and France have worked at Eurostar or at the port of Calais or the port of that is clearly working, which is why these desperate individuals seek to go out on rubber boats in the middle of November in the freezing cold. So we need to deploy that. So I put it to you again, what about obviously with French permission, the British military being deployed on these 200 kilometres?
We are happy to look at whatever resources the French believe would be helpful, and we're certainly, for example, can that be military surveillance? Or, let's be clear, no one's talking about putting troops in an armed capacity. Neither would we talk about our forces. Border Force is not an armed force either. So what we would look to see is what we can agree to get additional resources. We accept this isn't just a French problem, and this isn't just a British problem either. And also, where can we get to in terms of returns agreements as well? We offered one with our negotiations with the EU. If we could secure one, that would also make a major difference by breaking the model of ending up in the UK and potentially being able to remain, and also alongside our wider changes to the asylum system to reduce the incentive to actually make this journey.
Some charities point to the idea of processing centres actually in France, a bit like the way it works at Calais when you arrive with your vehicle. You're actually processed by UK Border Force staff, as you know. What about a centre there, Minister, peopled by UK border staff? It won't stop everybody, but if I've come from Vietnam with my wife and family and I'm told I'm not getting into the UK, even if I cross on a boat, I might well not do it. French processing centres, what about that idea?
First, I don't think it'd be effective because, let's be upfront, to actually get to that type of centre, you'd have already had to get yourself trafficked across the Mediterranean, where literally thousands of people have lost their lives coming across. What for us works is looking to create safe and legal routes from the regions themselves. And we're even doing work now to see how our economic migration routes, industries and businesses that potentially are looking for skills, and where people have those skills but are stuck in a refugee camp, how we could look to work to actually use our migration, some of our wider migration routes to provide a life-changing opportunity. Of course, where people have come via one of our safe and legal routes or via a visa into our economic migration routes, they can travel safely direct from the region itself.
But if I'm in Vietnam, how is my way of getting into the UK? Do I go to the local consulate?
Well, it depends, obviously, Nick. If you, for example, you're someone who's skilled to an RQF 3 level and has a reasonable command of English, you can look for work, and if you get a job offer, you can apply that meets our criteria. You can apply for a skilled worker visa.
But if I'm not skilled, my only way of getting into UK is to risk my life, isn't it? To cross the channel.
Well, we cannot. Sadly, have every person who'd like to. This is a great country. We accept there's many millions of people across the world.
But
who
do
would
we
like
not need asylum routes?
As
some charities suggest, this could be saved if we had established asylum routes recognised on mainland Europe and by the United Kingdom. Is that something worth exploring?
Well, first, we would say that mainland Europe are actually safe and democratic countries with functioning asylum systems. So, and similarly, when we look at the challenges on the European Union's external borders, both in the Mediterranean and Eastern Europe, I think few would see making those situations even worse as a successful strategy for the United Kingdom to seek to adopt. But we need to look to work together with our European partners. This is a shared challenge that we are all facing. But ultimately, we're never going to be in a position where absolutely everyone who'd like to come and live in the UK will be able to do so. I don't think that's something that your listeners would think would be a sensible approach either. But where we can offer support to those via safe and legal routes, which do exist, we should prioritise that support to those most in need of it, rather than those who would simply prefer to be in the UK.
Where were the border force vessels that the Home Secretary and indeed drones said were constantly policing the Channel last night?
Well, they were out there, but without going too much into the detail of the incident itself, it occurred in French waters.
Okay. Lastly, some of my listeners are puzzled by the amount of money that we've sent to the French to try and help police their borders. You're aware of how much we've sent since 2015. Do you know the figure?
Well, as you know, recently we've agreed £54 million to additionally support the work on the Channel. We're paying that in the agreed instalments.
Do you know the total over the last 6 years?
Well, we work together with France on a range of border measures.
No. My question is, do you know how much the British taxpayer has sent across the Channel in the last 6 years? Are you aware of the figure?
Well, again, it depends what figure you include. Do you include our juxtaposed control?
No, I include the figure to help. It's £196 million in 6 years. What have we got for that, lastly, Minister?
Well, as I touched on, the French have prevented 20,000 crossings this year.
It would be cheaper to pay them all, wouldn't it?
Without it, we've seen arrests. We've worked together on breaking organised criminal grounds, but we want to do more. We want to go further. And, for example, we do want to look at having returns agreements that fundamentally break the business model of the people traffickers.
OK, finally, where is the Home Secretary? Why is she not out, quotes, on the round today, Minister?
Well, the Home Secretary's focused on the response, and she'll imminently be talking to her French counterpart. And I think most people this morning would realise why it's absolutely right the Home Secretary prioritises engaging directly with her French counterpart about what action we can take to prevent another tragedy.
When will we next be hearing from the Home Secretary? Do you know it?
Well, I understand the Home Secretary will not only be after she's engaged with her French counterpart, we'll certainly also be looking to keep Parliament updated as well with our work.
So sometime later today, will she address Parliament?
Well, I think let's let her actually have the conversation with her French counterpart. But I'm sure we'll hear more from the Home Secretary very soon. But I think people will understand why, with a dynamic situation and given the tragedy and the the tragedy of yesterday, why her focus today is on that response and working with France to prevent another one.
Grateful for your time today. Thank you. Safe and Legal Migration Minister Kevin Foster appearing here on LBC, where the time is 8 o'clock. News is next.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock.